item going.
All right. What is this now? Package? They want us to re-enter the packages, but they have the whole form. Oh, this is going to be the death of us, this fucking system.
It sounds like the other ones are going through. Joe's got the.
Yeah, but attached to the updated comp for the contracts, one, and for FCA contract, updated because of issues that Frank addressed. Please include them in the contract packages in ERCS and advise when they've been entered. What does he mean? Put them into the big packages?
Well, if he didn't address it to you,
Who's Frank?
he addressed it to Jordan and whoever.
Oh, is this they call us? No.
You have nothing to work.
All right, so I addressed it down.
It's CC.
So we're good. John, we'll be fine. Look, these guys, you know, I'm not either, because you know what bottom line is? We worked our fucking pieces off. If they didn't see that master list of contracts, you know how many you saw it. The guy, and I just went down and spoke to Ariane again about this case. I don't know what we're gonna do, John, and she'll justify it too. We have reached out monthly to them at least about, and at one point they did have a signed agreement with us, but it aged out because they didn't do any enforcement. You know, but they need to. This is charge his salary. So,
Republicans get in more option.
why won't she put him on?
She's worried.
About layoffs? Get a chair. Hold on. Oh, she's worried about what?
Worried about her job. She's ordered.
Who, Ariane?
Yeah.
They won't worry. They won't.
I said, I'll take care of it. That's when you're in, with the Republicans in.
First of all,
I'll have you make a call.
I'll keep it. But first,
Because she's not somebody.
no, I know. But first of all, we're like 50 people under anyway.
Oh, I understand.
How did they lay off in this
She
department?
just thinks that she'll get taxed.
They'll look to action if current moves.
Right.
What about if she won't? She's still
But
current?
you'll have to.
I would make a call for Ariane. I would do that.
To keep her.
I would do that.
And then I'll make a phone call.
Yeah, I would do it.
Calls and she can get kept.
Look, if a Republican county executive was, she doesn't have to worry.
She's got nothing to worry about it.
No.
Don't worry.
No, I wouldn't worry.
I'm not gonna sit and tell her.
First of all, she does her job, so who gives a fuck?
Well, she does a great job.
I know she does.
And plus, she, to be honest with you, Tom, she's a great compliment to you.
100%.
Because.
She does shit I don't want to do.
Right.
I got you. I know. You think I don't know?
If you need
I don't wanna do that.
If you need,
If I need to
if you need
shit,
someone,
right.
right, and if you need something to write something, you get legal briefing and say, hey, she's great at shit.
I know. That's what they do well. They don't try cases. I know. I would have loved that someone like her do all the research and shit for me. Oh, I hated that, John. I hated it. It was my worst fucking thing. You could give me a folder and say, Monday morning, you're trying this case. If you brief, I'd be like,
Yeah, well, I know, you hate to write.
oh, hate it. If they would have sent me to appeals my first day in the DA's office, I wouldn't have lasted 6 months. I wouldn't have lasted.
No problem.
I don't like it. It's not enjoyable to me. That's, you know, I got this
I'm not
one.
a big writer
It
either.
feels hot, you know?
Yeah, well, I was supposed to get down to 40.
Sticky.
All right. Yeah, they never invite me, I just wrote back to you.
Oh, that's fine. You're with me. You'll sit here with me. Yeah, you'll sit here with me.
And it's up to you if you want the video or not. We can show our faces and say, yeah.
I'll put the video on. I don't care.
I don't know who this Peter Klein is.
Who are they talking? This is the guy who's going to give me a hard time?
He must be like, because when I looked him up, he's not a legislator.
What is he? Is he an attorney for the minority? Where do you see him? Is he in the email for the county?
No, I don't know.
I'm still gonna give them credit for him, and if they get it, if they don't get it, they take it off at a later date. Okay.
Hey, John. I don't know why this doesn't sound too loud. Maybe he's not. I'm turning it up, but I don't. Should be all the way.
There's 2 volumes.
Hello? Where's the other volume? I hear it. I go. They told us to turn the mics on. That's what I'm saying. Okay. All right. I'm sorry.
Craig is here. Can't do it anymore.
I like here. Not like Steven's there.
Hi, Kev.
Steven's here.
I am good. And I have to tell you that when I was in Home Depot, they didn't have any. This is for you kids.
No, Steven.
Which one?
Steven.
The other one? Ask Aiden to Lucas to find it. Oh, you are so wonderful. Oh, I might be the only one on here.
No one was as good as Joe.
Your hair looks fine, Rose. Don't fix it. Rose.
Oh my God, Vin, it's it's going wherever.
At least it's still there.
Want to give them everything in my house? I know. Well, honestly, that's a fit. Let's go in a fit.
What were you getting, Abe?
Eat it. You want to
I'm going to call this meeting of the Nassau County Legislature. We're going to have an emergency meeting, then a Rules Committee, but let's call the meeting to order and ask that Deputy Presiding Officer Coppell to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Please place the flag and join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic
to the republic, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. We have a brief emergency calendar for today's legislature. Before we get to that, obviously, we'll have to call the roll. Does anybody have a list of legislators by any chance? Thank you. Don't get too close. All right. Deputy Presiding Officer Coppell. Legislator Ford.
Here.
Legislator Bino. Legislator Szilagyi.
Here.
Got it. Legislator Muley.
Here.
Legislator Gaylor.
The Colonel is present.
Legislator Muscarella.
Here.
Legislator Birnbaum.
Here.
Legislator DeRidge Witten. Legislator Kennedy.
Present.
Legislator McKevitt. Legislator Schaefer.
Here.
Legislator Ferretti. Legislator Drucker.
Here.
Legislator Walker.
Here.
Legislator Lapizan. Legislator Rhodes. Minority Leader Abrahams.
Here.
I am here, so all 19 of us are present either in person or via remote. We have 3 emergency items. I'm going to call the emergency for all 3. All right, the 3 items are 117, 118, 119. They are ordinances supplemental to the annual appropriation ordinance in connection with the Office of Housing and Community Development. That's all 3 of those items. So we need a motion to establish the emergency, moved by Legislator Rhodes, seconded by Legislator Muscarella. Any discussion or debate on the emergency nature of these items? Actually, Kevin, why don't you just, you can give us a presentation on the items themselves. That will establish why there's an emergency.
Great. Thank you very much. And thank you for considering it as an emergency today. Kevin Crean from the Office of Community Development. These are items 117, 20, 118, 20, 119, 20. They represent supplemental appropriation under 2 grants, supplemental funding from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development under the Emergency Solutions Grants Coronavirus Grant and the Community Development Block Grant Coronavirus funding. About $8.5 million in CDBG funding, coronavirus, and about $4.2 million under the Emergency Solutions Grant Coronavirus funding. The Emergency Solutions Grant is separated into 2 different supplementals. That's why we have 3. It's 2 different allocations, but that grant is separated into 2 parts, which just follows along the process before HUD merged 2 programs together. So we've just continued to keep them separate. These funds are specifically appropriated by Congress and signed by the President to push funds out to local communities for items such as food banks, payment of purchase of personal protective equipment, and also some supplemental funding for general community development and emergency solutions grants needs. The Emergency Solutions Grants Program specifically addresses the homeless and those at risk of becoming homeless.
Yes, Legislator DeRidge Witten. Okay, is that Ellen? Can you hear us?
Yeah, I hear you. I have a question.
Shoot.
How will the county
FCC be monitoring these expenditures to make sure the funds are being spent properly?
These two programs are already administered by our office, so this is supplemental funding. The rules are generally the same, although HUD has waived some of the requirements. For instance, they've waived caps on specific types of funding for different types of activities, but essentially the requirements are the same, so our office that's what we're tasked to do every year, is to monitor the use of these funds. So that's no different. Most of these funds will go out to various nonprofit organizations via contracts. So those contracts will be authorized, and then the payment to the nonprofits will be done by a voucher against those contracts. Those vouchers will be approved by the Comptroller's Office, and checks issued by the Treasurer's Office. It's in the same process that our office follows generally.
Thank you.
Okay, is there some sort of expedited procedure that you're going to have? In other words, as opposed to the general procedures, which may take some time? Obviously, we want to get these monies into the hands of the nonprofits and others to administer these programs as quickly as possible.
Well, that's why we asked for the supplemental to be done as an emergency, so that we can start entering into contracts. Whether we'll have an expedited process for the contracts, I can't say at this point. But right now, we'll be submitting the amendment that you approved 2 weeks ago to HUD for approval. They hopefully will have an expedited process, although we have not heard that. We're still waiting for final regulations from HUD to come down, but they have encouraged municipalities to submit the amendment and to get started with allocating funds in advance of the amendment. Most of the funding that we are authorizing do not require any waivers from HUD, other than the waiver of the cap on public services, and that's already been authorized, so we're not looking for anything special on this.
Okay, all right, thanks. But I guess getting this to you today as opposed to 2 weeks from now, it just helps the process along.
Absolutely. This will allow us to enter into contracts and encumber funds. So.
Okay, anyone else? Sure. Legislator DeRizzi.
Hi. So if someone were to be interested in trying to get funding for like past electric bills that were due, what would be the advice to them? To contact DSS, or?
Is this a renter, or?
Just a constituent. In other words, how are we getting this message out to people that this is available?
We already had an application portal. We had a portal under our regular grant funding, so we opened that up to nonprofits and municipalities already. So the applications have already been received. But for individuals who are looking to access the funding, they could contact my office. We can put them in touch with a nonprofit who may be providing those services. If it's someone who's at risk, who has not been able to pay their rent or not been able to pay their electric utility bills as a result of losing their job or loss of income, that's a program we already have in existence. It's the Homeless Prevention Program, so that's administered out of our office. This is extra funding that will allow us to reach a higher income threshold. So we hopefully will be able to reach more people with that program because of this.
I'm sorry, so just to make it easy, if we wanted to advertise, or not advertise, but make it known, we would say to inquire about the Homeless Prevention grant or service.
Correct.
And I'm sorry to do this, but would you mind just giving me the phone number that they should call just to make it easy?
Sure. It's 572-0100.
Okay.
All right, and we are coordinating with DSS on this, just because we're expecting the volume of applicants to increase. So DSS is going to assist us with the higher income applicants, and we're going to continue processing the lower income applicants from our office.
All right. Thank you for all the work you're doing.
Oh, thank you.
Any other questions on the emergency?
Rich, I have a follow-up to my first question.
Sure.
Is anyone in overall charge of monitoring the county expenditures of COVID funding to make sure we're in compliance with all the applicable laws regarding the regulations? Is there anyone in particular in the administration, or how are we running this?
Well, I'm the director of Office of Community Development. These funds are coming through my office, so I'm in charge of oversight. But we are in turn overseen by the Comptroller's Office, which audits our office annually.
Okay.
Is that it, Ellen? You good?
Yes.
Okay. Anyone else have any questions? Legislator DeRizzi.
I was happy that the funding that is going through this process is going to be tagged specifically COVID funding, correct?
Yes. Yes.
So anyone can just go back and trace it if there's any questions later,
Oh, absolutely, yes.
which is much better than what we've had in the past, so I think that's a great improvement.
Through the supplemental process, we established a separate grant line. That's why you see the two-digit extension. It's CDBG-CV, which stands for COVID virus. That's HUD's, well, actually, it's C1 in the county. HUD's termed it CV. We termed it C1 because we are expecting a second allocation of funding.
Okay.
And that'll be C2 when we receive that.
All right, good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other legislators? All right. So we need a motion to establish the emergency. Moved by Legislator Birnbaum, seconded by Legislator McKevitt. All in favor of establishing the emergency signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed?
Aye.
All right. Lagging a little bit there. So the emergency has been established by a unanimous vote. So now on the items themselves, 117, 118, and 119, I'll call them an ordinance. These are ordinance supplemental to the annual appropriation ordinance in connection with the Office of Housing and Community Development. Moved by Legislator Gaylor, seconded by Legislator Bino. We had debate, we had discussion both on emergency and on substance, but if anyone has any additional questions, you can ask them now. Hearing none. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Passes unanimously.
Thank you for your
Kevin.
attention to this. Appreciate it.
Motion to adjourn. Legislator Ferretti.
So moved.
Seconded by Legislator Lafazan. All in favor of adjourning the legislature signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, legislature is adjourned. We'll jump right into the Rules Committee. Again, we have the rules members who can vote. Everyone else can participate in terms of questions, discussion, etc. The Rules Committee, I'll call the roll. Legislator Coppell, Legislator Rhodes, Legislator Schaefer,
Here.
Minority Leader Abrahams,
Here.
Legislator DeReggie Whitten, Legislator Bino. Okay. Item 109 of 2020, a resolution providing for the issuance of a warrant directing the treasurer of the County of Nassau to pay the supervisors of the several towns and to the treasurers of the several villages and cities within the county the sums as apportioned by the legislature based on a report filed by the treasurer and county clerk showing deposits for mortgage taxes for the quarter beginning January 1st, 2020 through March 1st, 2020. Moved by Legislator Bino, seconded by Legislator DeReggie Whitten. Any debate or discussion on this item? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Carries unanimously. 111 of 2020 is a resolution making certain determinations pursuant to the New York State Environmental Quality Review Act and authorizing the county executive on behalf of the county to execute a first modification of lease agreement between the county as tenant and BC Holdings of NY, Inc. as landlord in connection with certain premises at 160 North Franklin Street, Hempstead, New York. Moved by Legislator Bino, seconded by Minority Leader Abrahams. Is anyone, Katie, is anyone here to speak on this item?
Yes, hello. Craig Lavelle, Deputy County Attorney, on behalf of the Office of Real Estate Services on this item. This is a lease for approximately 5,700 square feet of space for the WICS program. And this lease will continue the term of the duration of the lease will be for another 5 years. This is our first extension.
All right,
Thank
any
you.
questions? Hearing none. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Carries unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next three items are 112, 113, and 114 of 2020. These are resolutions authorizing the county executive to execute grant agreements between the county and the Museum of American Armor, the Friends of Cedarmere, Inc., and the Long Island Children's Museum. Moved by Legislator Schaefer, seconded by Legislator Rhodes. Any questions on this item? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those
Aye.
opposed? They carry unanimously. So we're going to jump into the contracts portion of the meeting. A3 of 2020 is a resolution authorizing the Commission of Shared Services to award and execute a purchase order between the county and Tyler Technologies. We need a motion on that. Motion by Deputy Presiding Officer Coppell, seconded by Minority Leader Abrahams. This is before us. Anyone to speak on this contract with Tyler Technologies?
Yes, this is Nancy Stanton, IT Commissioner, 803-2020, Tyler Technologies. This PO is for annual maintenance and support of the ADAPT system. The PO is for $605,000 annually. The term is January 1st, 2020 through December 31st, 2020. This ADAPT product is extensively used by the Assessment Department, ARC, Treasurer, and County Attorney.
Okay, I don't know if there's anyone on the, anyone from assessment is on via remote or not.
Yes, I have Robert Miles here with me.
Hey, Robert, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
The question I had was this, you know, as recently as March, when you're making the arguments as to why the phase-in had to be passed earlier rather than later, the assessor indicated that the department had to deal with this outdated technology, specifically the ADAPT system. So now we are entering into a contract to perpetuate that system. Is there any alternative at this time to moving away from ADAPT?
Not currently. It houses everything that we need, and we have a lot of applications that are linked to the ADAPT system, so it would be very difficult right now to transfer to another portal application, database. It's everything, so it'd be very difficult to transfer from that program to something else. It's not that it's never been discussed before, but it really is an all-encompassing program, and it not only affects assessment, but the Treasurer's Office uses it extensively as well. So we'd have to make sure they're on board with any change that we do.
I would ask the Assessment Department, Treasurer's Office, IT, to at least begin the process of looking to transition away to another program, or to a program that's not quote-unquote antiquated, and that could fulfill all the needs of our Assessment Department. And I think that's a process that should at least be begun at this time.
Yeah, we've been looking into it. It's still trying to find something that's cost-effective and time-effective. So, you know, creating a whole new system for us would be is a tough project. It's not an easy project, and it would be costly. But if fiscally we are sound and we are comfortable with the project itself, and the IT department and the Treasurer's Office is on board, then we'll keep looking. But we've looked in the past, we continue to look, and we do want to move forward with more innovative processing.
All right. I think what we would like to see going forward is a report on the on how this process develops and what progress is being made by that committee and those departments.
Okay, we will.
Okay. Legislator Ridgewin.
Hi, can you just explain why there is a $23,000 increase for this year?
There were additional modifications that were made, done on time and material that weren't part of this.
All right, so you're getting additional services from the provider?
Yeah, and I believe there is an annual increase also.
Okay.
Any other questions? Hearing none, all in favor of this item signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Carries unanimously. I
Thank
neglected.
you. Thank you.
Thank you. And then neglected to point out earlier that there were public comments submitted, which will be made part of the record, including comments from John Durso, the president of Local 338, and the president of the Long Island Federation of Labor, a comment from John Budnick, and a comment from Pete Gaffney. So they will be made part of the record. If it requires a response, somebody from the legislature or staff will be getting back to you. And then I called that first contract individually. I'm going to call the rest as a group to streamline this a little bit. First is A26, 2020, a resolution authorizing the Commissioner of Shared Services to award and execute a purchase order between the County and Nassau and Millennium Products Group. Then I'm going to go to E52, E56, E61, E63, E64, E65, E66, E67, E68, and E69. These are resolutions authorizing the county executive to execute personal services agreements or amendments to personal services agreements between the county and Cedar Moore Corporation, Chains Healthcare Practice Management Solutions, Gannett Fleming Engineers, H2M Architects, NV5 New York, Lyro, GIS, and Greenman Peterson, and the Nassau County Healthcare Corporation, and the Leadership Training Institute. That's moved by Legislator Schaefer, seconded by Legislator Bino. So all those contracts are before us, and we'll move on now to contract A26 is with Millennium Products Group. I don't know if we have which is a contract through emergency management. There we go.
Good afternoon, Andy Persick. This is a contract with a vendor that we found to get PPE equipment. It's a wholesaler, but as this thing was evolving, we were running out of vendors that we could get equipment from, so this became the prime choice to get some of the PPE equipment.
I did have a question, which is that the masks apparently that are being purchased are almost $1 each, according to the backup. And I believe they're the ones that we're wearing, the cloth masks. Is that price, is that a good price? Is it high for this department?
I can't tell you pricing-wise. What I do know, in the midst of what was happening on these, we have these daily phone calls that occur, getting the equipment drove the price up. So I wouldn't be surprised that somewhere in the interim that these probably were driven up by pricing because of demand. I mean, we've heard a lot of press conferences on this about what's happening in this market arena. And I think what happened is in the middle of the crisis, there was limited supplies that we can get, and there was a lot of debated discussion about where we were going to procure stuff, and this became the primary source at a pricing scale that may not be at current levels, but at that time it was probably a good deal. So.
Okay. Anyone else have any questions? Anyone at home?
Actually, I do. Do you see, this is Legislator Schaefer, do you see a need to purchase more of these going forward from the same company, or what are we looking at now for the future?
I don't believe that's the plan. I think this was a short-term fix. I think there's a lot of debated discussions now once we go into the recovery mode legislator that we'll be looking to procure these through whether it be a state contract or something else. I think, we all know that supply is going to be a big issue, and I think I'm hearing a 90-day supply. So I don't think we're there yet, but I just want to make you aware that, OEM has a plan, I think, to stockpile some things, but where that's at right now, I don't know.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? All right. Thank you very much, Andy. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, carries unanimously. Next item is E52, contract with Cedar Moore Corporation. Anyone here or participating remotely to speak on this?
Good afternoon, Katie Horst from the administration. Brian Hall should be on the line for this contract.
Brian, you there?
Oh. Muted.
Are you able to answer any questions? Okay.
I can do my best.
The one question that I had was that I'm not sure why this program would be broken out from some of the other youth service agencies that we have. You know, for example, we have contracted youth service agencies that we deal with every year, so I wasn't sure why we would want to have an additional contract on top of that, as opposed to having these money flow into our regular youth service providers.
So just so I can understand, so the question is why an additional provider? If you give me a minute, I'll get Brian Hall on the phone and get an answer for you.
Okay.
If we want to move on to the next contract.
Can you hear me? This is Brian.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
I can hear you now.
Okay, good. Yeah, that was an RFP that we did last year for all the youth service contracts, and this is a 3-year contract we're giving out. I'm not sure what was that last question.
Yeah, I was, you know, I thought this seems to be on top of what we usually have in terms of our regular youth service agencies. And I was unsure as to why we didn't go through those agencies that we fund and we have an existing relationship with.
Well, actually, you know, we went through, like I said, the RFP process, and we had, they were a local affiliate there, and they met the qualifications, so we went with them. As far as previous agencies running that area, they would not have been picked for whatever reason.
Okay. All right, thank you, Brian. Any other questions?
I have a question, presiding officer. So
Sure.
this agency is a new agency?
Yes, it's a new agency for human services, but they've been around.
But they haven't been part of the county?
I'm not sure if there's any contracts as part of the county. There, as far as human services go, with these youth contracts, they haven't had one, and we don't have any other contracts with our other aging or chemical dependency or mental health. I'm not sure about the whole county if there's another contract out there.
So this agency, who did they replace in the area that they're now providing services to?
Well, I don't know that it's so much it was replacing as much as maybe enhancing, which, you know, I really don't want to go too deep into this because I'm not a program guy, but I do know that we had a problem with one of the other agencies that was in Freeport, and they actually dropped out of the running for it. So that left an opening.
Okay, but this was an agency that, I mean, they needed someone else to fill that spot to be able to service
Yeah, to cover that area. Right. Right.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Hearing none. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Carries unanimously. The other next two, thank you, Brian. Next two that I called were E56 and E69, having to do with agreements with Change Healthcare Practice Management Solutions and Change Healthcare Technology Enabled Services. These are contracts through the police department. All righty.
Good afternoon, William Field, Deputy Inspector from Personnel and Accounting Bureau. The first item is item E56-20. It's an amendment to an existing contract between the county and Change Healthcare Management Solutions Incorporated. It's to extend the contract to May 31st, 2020. A new RFP was issued in 2019. The department is currently working on an award. In order to ensure a smooth transition to the new contract, we have this amendment in place. It is a revenue-generating contract to offset expenses for the services provided. We also are endeavoring to encumber $354,400 to pay vendor fees as per the contract. Do you have any questions?
Any questions on this one? Let's move on to the second one. 69 would be.
Item E69-20 is a contract between the county. It is the new contract for the recording and transmission of pre-hospital care reports, billing and collection of fees for the department's Emergency Ambulance Bureau. The RFP was issued in 2019, as I said before. The department received 4 proposals. An evaluation committee was formed consisting of the members of the department's Emergency Ambulance Bureau as well as the county attorney's office. Proposals were ranked and scored, and the contract was awarded to the highest scoring proposer, which is Change Healthcare Technology Enabled Services. Similar to the previous E56 item, this is a revenue-generating contract which assists in offsetting expenses for the services rendered, and we are wishing to encumber $750,000 to pay vendors' percentage of net revenue.
Okay. So the first one is really more or less to finish out the existing contract.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
It goes through May 31st of 2020.
Right, so the end of this month. With respect to the second contract, we have questions about how aggressively the vendor is pursuing residents as to who's making determinations as to hardship status. You know, some of us were here when we first started doing this, and it was always the focus and intention was to recapture some of the monies from insurance companies that would pay for the ambulance trips to and from the hospital. And it seems that it's morphed into now something different in terms of going after residents whose taxes already pay for this service. So we have, again, this is with respect to the second contract. We have questions as to how this is being administered, how it could be better administered in such a way that we can achieve the original objective, which again is to recoup insurance monies as opposed to going after residents, many of whom who are in hardship, especially now with the COVID epidemic and the number of calls that were made, and again with the economic distress in the background of that. So I don't know if I have any questions for you, but that's just the background. Does anyone have any questions for Inspector Field? Anyone on video? If not, I think what I'd like to do is just table E69 and go ahead with E56. That's okay. You want a motion to table E69? Legislator Rhodes.
Fine.
Seconded by Legislator Pino. All in favor of tabling E69 signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Carries unanimously. And that's, I think we're good. Thank you. Next series of contracts are with the Public Works Department. Ken Arnold's here, so there are contracts with Gannett Fleming, H2M, NV5, and Greenman Peterson.
Good afternoon, Ken Arnold, Public Works. E61 is a construction management services contract for various pump stations in Glen Cove. 8 firms submitted. Gannett Fleming was the most qualified firm with a contract total of $884,000. The WBE participation is at 20%. Okay.
Just I have something to state in the record. The resolution is for a personal services agreement and not an amendment to a personal services agreement. So just so that the record is clear on that. Any questions for Ken on this item? Anyone via video? Okay.
Okay. So E63 is a design services contract for the design services for two Glen Cove pump stations. 4 firms submitted. H2M was the most qualified firm for $260,000 for the design services. The WBE goal is 20%.
Any questions? Hearing none, let's move on.
Okay, so E64 is a contract amendment for our on-call civil design contract with NV5. We're looking to amend the contract by $4 million, which will have a new cap of $5.5 million. There's current encumbrances in this amendment for resurfacing design, Centennial Park, Bannister Creek Bridge. This contract will expire, it's not being amended for expiration, but the current contract will expire in 2024.
This is a sizable increase in the amount due to, or potentially to be paid to NV5. It's for on-call design and related services.
Yes.
Are there other firms that do this for the county that are on the same
We
time?
we anticipate amending all the on-calls at a similar amount. We're looking to get us through until 2024, and we run a resurfacing alone, we're probably running $1 million, $1.5 million of design services out to the contractors, and we want them all in place. So just because they have the cap capacity doesn't mean they're going to get all that work, but without the capacity of the cap, I'd have to amend contracts before I can award design services. So we're looking for capacity for all these firms.
Okay. Is this extending the time?
No.
Of this? Okay.
We're staying within the same time frame of the original contract.
What I don't get is that, I mean, it was last year that you came before us and said that, ask for a certain amount of money for these on-call services, and within a year, you're looking to increase that by $4 million for this contractor and potentially other of the engineering firms.
We were looking at $1.5 million per year.
Okay.
And we realized, why do we have to keep coming back and doing this every year? We just figured we extend it out for the length of the contract.
Okay. All right. So the difference is you want to avoid having to come back each year for this particular on-call services contract.
Yeah.
Okay. What has is this unusual to extend an on-call contract out for this many years?
This current contract is I think it was a 3-year contract with 2 one-year extensions. So the money we're putting in gets us out to the last extension. We are making a contract a little bit longer because of the administrative burden of putting contracts through. We're trying to eliminate as many trips as possible.
Right. All right, so actually it's not as much an extension of the contract as it is just showing adequate funding there for the duration of the...
Yes. And like I said, it doesn't mean each firm will get all but I need to have capacity in the contract so they all can bid. And if I timely want to award a contract, I don't need to come back and change capacity.
Do the other firms get roughly the same amount of work, roughly?
Well, one thing to note is one firm just was added to the list. Nelson & Pope had gone through some extra compliance review. So now they're I think, the 6th firm that's in the loop. They were not part of last year's work because they were not yet approved. There's probably 3 firms that get most of our resurfacing work, which is the majority of the work. But all the firms are getting a piece of the pie.
Does anyone else have any questions? Legislative Division.
How much do you normally spend, like, per year on this type of contract?
Well, we have a lot of newer contracts that are out. So we've stepped up our bridge program. So we're putting out a bridge work that we did not done in the past. Resurfacing, all our designs are going through this now. We do very little designs through separate contracts. Both Centennial Park and Crystal Molly Park are both going through these design on-calls. And on top of that, we have our typical smaller designs that are beyond our in-house capacity that come through here. So I believe last year, I think we were somewhere around $6 million worth of work in total, went to the 5 firms.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Passes unanimously. All right, last one for you, 66, right? No, 65.
My apologies. So 66 is a contract for our traffic management center operations. We had 2 bidders on this. Goodman Peterson was selected as the lowest responsible bidder. It's a 3-year contract with a cap of $3.5 million. The 2020 encumbrance is for $900,000. We get 80% reimbursement on this contract. These are the people that are in our command center monitoring 24/7 the conditions of our roadways.
Has the CSEA taken a position on this?
Yes, they proposed, they claimed the work. We wrote back to them saying this historically was never done by county staff. So I anticipate at some point there'll be a grievance hearing on this issue.
What is the urgency on this?
I think our current contract, we're in an extension right now. So if without having this contract, we could end up with a lapse in service, because I think we extended our existing contract to cover a time period. I don't know exactly when the current contract expires. I don't have that with me today.
Could you find that out while we're here?
Sure, I can make some calls to find that out.
Okay. All right, so we'll come back to this one.
Okay.
Now, let's move on to E65 2020. This is, I guess, with information technology. It's Lyro GIS, Inc. I don't know if Nancy
Yes,
Stanton's still there.
Good afternoon, Nancy Stanton, IT, E6520, Lyro GIS. This amendment is to extend the current contract for 1 year through February 28th. We use this vendor for monthly GIS data maintenance, CAD system, and tax map tools migration for assessment. Our original contract term was March 1st, 2015 through 2020. We do not have any renewals left on this contract. Part of the delay in this renewal was due to Lyro GIS changing their name from Lyro GIS Survey to Lyro GIS and getting them to complete the forms, the appropriate forms. This is just an extension.
Okay, any questions? All right, thank you, Nancy.
Thank you.
We have 2 more contracts left with the Department of Probation, E67 and E68. Nassau County
afternoon.
Healthcare
Can you hear me?
Corporation is E67, and E68 is Leadership Training Institute.
Good afternoon, legislators. My name is Dominic DiMaggio. I'm the attorney for the Department of Probation. As far as contract 6720, that is for retroactive payments for healthcare services provided to all the detainees at the Juvenile Detention Center. It is for services that were provided January 1 of 2013 through September 30th of 2018. There is a state reimbursement of 49% on the services, and it is a retroactive contract to cover for those payments.
Any questions on that contract?
I'm sorry. At present, there is a contract for the services for the detainees in effect through 20 of 23. That was initiated on October 1st of 2018 to reach the new raise the age standards that are required by the state. So we do have a present contract in effect for the services at the detention center through 2023.
Any questions on the first contract? Legislator DeRidge Whitten.
Can you explain why, I know it's retroactive, but why it's this late?
Sure. I did attach a retro memo with the contract, but I'll just give you a brief summary of it. My predecessor, who had retired December 31st of 2016, I was provisionally appointed August 6th of 2017. I don't have an explanation for why it was never initiated. But when I did take over, there were a number of retroactive contracts, which we've successfully cleared up the vast majority of them. In fact, we're pretty much caught up after this contract. So I've been working diligently to try and clear up any old contracts that were due. When I did become aware that these were due, I did have the Juvenile Detention Center director, as well as the accounting staff of the department, verify that the services were provided and the appropriate amounts are being billed to the county before I initiated the payment for this contract.
So it's 6.5 years late, and how did the hospital pay for things for the last 6.5 years? Like, how were they paid for their services?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear your question. I apologize.
Can you just explain how the hospitals that provided the services were paid for the last 6.5 years?
They weren't paid at this point.
They weren't paid?
It's money due. It's a total of approximately $49,000 due, and it dates back from January 13 through, like I said, September 30th of 18. And they are still due this money, so it's actually for payment for retroactive services already provided.
All right, because, you know, we had a contract in front of rules back in September of 2019 where we went through the Nassau Healthcare Corporation for 2018 to 2023 contract for these services. This wasn't included at that time?
No, it wasn't, because we processed that contract on an expedited basis because it met all the new standards for the Raise the Age services that had to be provided with the new law, which took effect October 1 of 2018. And I also had to verify that these services were provided and that the appropriate amounts were charged back from those dates. Obviously, it was a number of years ago, so I did a double check through the JDC director as well as the accountant to verify that the amounts were correct.
So do you think there's anything in place now that would avoid something like this from happening for 6.5 years? Like, does anyone review the charges and see why we're so far behind?
Like I did say, specifically with NHCC, the present contract is in effect through 2023, so we're actually ahead of the game with that. All the other contracts, I've been working diligently and I'm pretty much caught up. There were a number of contracts, as I'm sure most of the legislators remember. I'm working my way through it. I've pretty much caught up at this point.
All right, good. I mean, I'm glad to support it, but I think 6.5 years is a new record. So just going forward, we just want to be a little bit, more on top of it. Thank you.
I absolutely understand that like I said, I don't have an explanation for why it wasn't paid. It was prior to my even being employed by the county, many of these charges. I didn't start till March of 2014 with the county itself.
All right. Tom, I don't think that's a record you wanted to set.
No, all I'm saying is that many of these, these bills were prior to me even being here. But, I am on top of it now that it is my position, and I will be following up to make sure that obviously this never happens again.
Okay, thank you. We want to jump into the next one, 68?
Sure. That is, I'm sorry, a contract. It's a fully funded grant contract, which is provided for parolees for their successfully re-entering into society and to prevent them from reoffending. It's a fully funded 100% state grant reimbursement. It's a pass-through. It's between ourselves and LTI, which is a new vendor now providing the services. Our prior vendor, FCA, informed us in June of last year that they no longer wanted to provide the services. An RFP was initiated, and LTI is now the vendor that's providing these services.
Okay.
This is slightly retroactive as well. I'd just like to make a note that many times with these grant contracts, our letters and the authorization for funding comes very close to the time or after the time in which the services actually begin. So many times built into the system, because of the way the funding comes through, there is a slight amount of retroactivity that occurs in these grant contracts, especially with the Department of Probation.
Okay. Any questions? All right, thank you, Dom.
Thank you.
Okay. Can I see you back in the room? Do you want to go back to E66?
This contract's actually a retroactive contract, I was just told by my project manager. We have to keep continuous service of the TMC to keep our funding. The contract, the current contract expired in January. This was to pick up that contract, and we'd be paying the vendor retroactively once this contract is approved. So I apologize for the misinformation. I did not realize that.
All right. I think we the legislators need to just take a look at this over the course of the next 2 weeks. For this reason, you have your potential CSEA grievance on this, claiming that this should be done by their workers. So I think we need to, at a very minimum, to do our due diligence to take a look at these titles and see if we agree with them or not.
Yeah, we don't have these titles in the department. We've never had these titles. It's always been done by a contract. It's kind of like the red light camera program, always been done by a contract. You know, there are other things that we go back and forth with the union all the time on. Right. But in this case, this is one, I'm comfortable saying that we've never done this work and had people operating this facility that were union employees.
All right, since it's a retroactive contract, if it's delayed for an additional 2 weeks.
Yeah, that's fine. I just know that, just want to state that other piece.
Right, to clarify the record.
I understand you want to go back and look at it.
Okay, all right, thank you. So with E66, we need a motion to table, moved by Legislator Rhodes, seconded by Deputy Presiding Officer Coppell. All in favor of tabling signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, carries unanimously. Now, for the rest of the contracts that have not been tabled, that would be A26, E52, E56, E61, E63, E64, E65, E67, E68. Okay. With respect to those contracts, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Thank you. Carries unanimously. Motion to adjourn, Legislator DeRiggi Whitten, seconded by Legislator Schaefer. All in favor of adjourning signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Aye. Carries unanimously. Thank you.
Come on.